Welcome back to the Retire As You Desire show. And today we have our very first guest appearance, Mr. Kent Webster. He is a millennial, just like myself. We're barely millennials, but Kent and I have been really close friends for many years now. He actually married my wife and I at our first wedding here in Chicago, 2017, many years ago. So Kent, thanks for being on the show today.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for having me, Bill. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was going to be fun because we were having lunch the other day and I had a thought, why don't you come on the show? Because not only is he super handsome, but he knows what he's talking about. And when you're a millennial, it's hard. It's hard to get ahead. There's so much information out there. And I really wanted to just really digest how to become a millionaire as a millennial. Like, what does it take? What are the steps that he's done? What are some of the things that he's seen other people do? Because we have a pretty diverse group of friends, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I would. Now, thank you for those titles. I'm not there yet. I'm close. I'm trying my best, but I'm not there yet. Very lucky, been very blessed in my life, and that helps a lot. But really, it's about discipline. I think I've gotten where I've gotten by budgeting, being aware of where I'm spending my money, making sure that I'm always spending less than I have, and just measurement, like measuring and knowing where your money's going makes it really easy to spend less than you have. And then that allows you to slowly build up, slowly put stuff away. Me, myself, I graduated college. I had a fair amount of debt.
How much is a fair amount of debt?
How much is a fair amount of debt?
Yeah.
I graduated with, in my own name, $60,000 in student loans and $20,000 in credit card debt on top of that.
On top of that?
On top of that. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was funding my whole life, like 4 years, eating, driving, car payments. That was all being funded on a credit card. I was not aware of that at the time. Part of that is just being uneducated, not aware of what was going on. Part of that was, the institutions, my family, my other people in my life, not making me aware of what I was doing. But I walked out of school with a lot of debt. And I didn't know what it took to make that all go away. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of discipline to actually, work that down, pay that off dollar by dollar, not let it get too far, not let it grow, right? It's very interest to let interest. It's very easy to let interest grow out of control because you're not, attacking the principal. You're just servicing the debt, and therefore the principal never goes any lower. It just maintains, which is not what you want to do. And so, it led to, it also doesn't help that I graduated in 2008. It was a great year to come out.
You and me both.
Yes, exactly.
Both, yeah.
We had a lot of job opportunities in May, and by September, they were all gone. And the opportunities we had as new graduates were being filled by people 3, 4, 5 years into their career. So I stumbled around. It took me about 2 years before I really landed my first corporate job that paid, the medium wage or slightly above medium wage. And I've been a corporate person ever since. Now, what did help me is I did go back to school. I did get an MBA. And, at the time, the guidance was you get an MBA, you're going to double your salary. Well, I did that. Worked full time while I was in school, did it in 2.5 years, graduated, found a job in consulting, and doubled my salary. That helped a lot. But lifestyle inflation, right? Once you start getting those new sources of income, it's really easy to start spending and spend up to that limit of your new income. And what I, especially with this first jump in income, I made a conscious effort to say, no, this is the time that I need to service a lot of the stuff that I've been holding on to. College, it's been, 5 years that I'm out of college now, and I'm still having this weight around me, and it's time to start servicing it. It's time to start knocking it down, and got almost all of it away before we decided to really start using debt in other ways to grow my wealth.
Yeah. Now, there's a difference between good debt and bad debt.
Absolutely.
Did you have a mindset around that, or how did you figure that out? Because most people are just either scared of debt, they don't understand how it works, they don't understand the taxation on the good debt. So how did that come to fruition for you?
Well, it started from a basic necessity of, we were living in an apartment in downtown Chicago, and I was looking at what the increase was going to be. It was going to be a 15% increase on my rent. And I was like, hold on. And my dad, actually a former trust officer, a bank, sat down with me and did that kind of explaining about hold on, when you buy a property, there's all these tax write-offs that you can take. You can write off the interest. You can write off the taxes you pay on it. And when I suddenly looked at my net, yes, I was spending more money on a dollar by dollar basis per month. But then when I look at my net after my taxes, I was actually coming out a few $100s ahead. So that started my wife and I to start pursuing finding our first property. And we were very lucky. The market was much different than it is today. Interest rates were much different than they were today. Oh, yeah. And part of that luck is also being aware of the opportunities that are out there and taking advantage of them when you can. So I knew interest rates were good. It was, let's do it. We weren't exactly ready for it. We weren't exactly ready for home ownership and all the stuff that comes with it, the added extra costs, the extra headaches, the responsibilities.
Totally.
But we jumped into it. We found what I'll call a starter townhome in the north side of Chicago. And not trying to, we ended up being lucky and timed the market. And we owned that place for 5 years, and we walked out of it, gaining $75,000 in equity on the place between buying and selling after expenses, after the costs of actually getting into it and the costs of getting out to it. Total luck, absolutely total luck. Not tried to time the market, but that was the start. That was the start of the snowball of real estate that I was lucky enough to get into as a 26-year-old.
That was like the aha moment for you. It was like, oh, wait, this can work. I see the benefits of this. You said something that was very interesting to me about we weren't ready for this. Don't you think you need to jump, whether it's paying off debt? Most people are not ready to just go for it, attack their debt, snowball their debt, or investing or buying their first house. Nobody's really ever ready. You just have to go for it. What was your thought around that?
No, absolutely. Everybody feels like an imposter. It's called imposter syndrome.
For a reason.
You're like, I don't know what to do with this. And you really just have to look yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? I need to forgive myself for all the mistakes I might have made in the past. Forgive myself for not taking action before today. Right now, today, I can take action. I'm taking action today, and I'm doing that thing. I'm going to do that thing that I have been putting off that I haven't wanted to do. And that can be investing. That can be, and just, you got to start. And once you start, my gosh, the momentum just builds and it builds and it builds. And suddenly something that you had anxiety about becomes much easier to do.
So let's talk about the debt, like your student loans, because I had $54,000 of student loans, very similar to you. When I was going to college, I mean, I was lucky, very lucky when my parents could send me a $20 Walmart gift card for groceries because I had to work 2 jobs in college just to fund eating and going out, things like that. And I was playing soccer, so we were traveling a lot. You were traveling too, because you were doing your singing and you were all over the country too. It's not easy when you want to get an extra meal or you want to get a coffee. It's like, where's this money going to come from? But when you focused in on, okay, I need to get rid of this debt, what happened? Take us through that.
Well, like I started, measurement. Measurement is so important. You need to know and truly budget out what you can spend where, because then that helps you make decisions. You need to know how much you're bringing in, and then you need to say, what are my living expenses, shelter, utilities, internet, phone, and then you do your best to minimize those. They're like phone. We all get locked into $100, $200 plans when, there's Mint Mobile out there for $15 a month.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Bring your own phone, and still to this day, I own my phone for 5 years. I take it to the end of life for the Apple cycle before I buy a new one. And you know what? It still works, still great. Sometimes the battery goes out. One of the mid-generation ones, we had to replace the battery, but Apple did it. And it's still cheaper than buying a new phone or getting locked into some huge plan. So measure, figure out where you can optimize, find budget solutions that still give you that service you need.
Did you use any apps to help you with this?
Oh, yes. I was a huge fan of Mint, but Mint's gone away.
Rest in peace,
so actually, I'm switching over to your app, man. Your app is fantastic.
Thank you. So you're really focusing in on getting rid of the cable bills, the cell phone bills, or just minimizing them. What was one thing that you didn't want to give up from an expense standpoint that you said, you know what, I can't live without this?
Well, so there's a lot of gurus out there that want you to live like a monk. They want you to sure, you named them, not me. So as I talk about debt, I have never actually fully paid off my debt. because I think there's a point in time where debt becomes a huge tool for you to use, not only to like live your life, but also to like make money and to earn money. I mentioned how I was able to borrow and suddenly make a significant amount of money on my real estate. But you can also do that for your life as well. So early in my 20s, what we used to do for vacations, we'd want to do a vacation is I would first do my budget. I would know how much money I could spend, and I'd have my like vacation fund. And I knew over the next 12 months what my vacation fund would be.
Ooh.
Now, Dave Ramsey wants you to put that in some account and sit on it in cash for 12 months, and then you buy the vacation, which you then get to go on 3 or 4 months later. No, there's great financial tools out there that as long as you have the discipline to pay it off before it's due, I can go get an interest-free purchased credit card. I can have a 14 or 16 month window, whatever the deal is that you can get at your credit score. And as long as you know what your total number is, make sure that you spend less than that total number. In fact, I like to keep 20% in there because that becomes my emergency fund. My emergency fund can go on this interest-free thing as opposed to me having to hold cash in my hand. And as long as I have the discipline to pay it off, minimum payments, pay it off on time so that it hits zero balance before that date hits when the interest starts coming in, guess what? I've borrowed money for 0% interest.
Hold that thought. We need to talk more about this because this is something I haven't even gone into. So I think we need to jump more into this in the next segment. So stay tuned to the Retire As You Desire show. We're going to learn Mr. Webster's tricks over here. So this is going to be a good one. Welcome back to the Retire As You Desire show. And today's episode is all about the millennial millionaire. How do you actually become a millionaire in your 20s or 30s? Some millennials are actually getting into their 40s now, like my wife. Don't tell her that. She might be upset. But if we break down how we wrapped up the last segment, it's really important for you to watch that. Credit card hacking, 0%. Take us through this because this is something that I'm not even aware of. Like, how have you been able to have this really benefit you?
Sure. So the term credit card hacking, you're not doing any hacking or doing anything on a computer. What it is reading through the deals that those financial institutions give you, banks and whoever else, and figuring out how can I optimize and how can I get the most out of that deal for myself without actually paying the financial institution the money they're looking to get. So right, credit cards. Banks make their money on credit cards off of interest.
True.
They also make it off transaction fees that you don't pay, but that's a whole nother thing. Ideally for you, what affects you is interest. So you want to avoid interest at all costs. So how do you avoid interest at all costs? You pay them when they want to be paid.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to be making full payments or minimum payment. Minimum payments are no go. You need to be making full payments by the time that statement is due. And a lot of these cards offer special deals, like open this card and you get 14 months interest-free on purchases. You know what that means? That means to me is I can open a card for, let's say, a 10 grand limit.
Okay.
I can spend 10 grand on day 2 of owning that card. And then I get 14 months to take those payments and split it up and pay that off over time.
Really?
And as long as the due date, 14 months out from when I open that card, comes and I have zero balance on it, I have now borrowed $10,000 interest-free. Can you tell me any other bank that's willing to lend you $10,000 interest-free?
And you're doing this all through a credit card?
All through a credit card.
Wow.
Now, you have to have the discipline with your money to make sure that you can pay these off. So if you want to start with this, start with one card and manage one card for a year. Once you are comfortable and you have the discipline to do it, that's when you can start opening multiple. And personally, I like targeting cards for specific activities. So like if I want to do a vacation, open the card just for that vacation. Do not put anything else on it.
Nothing.
Well, no.
Okay.
So if you put stuff on 6 months into that 14-month period, you have to reduce how much money you can actually spend, because you can't go up to the credit limit.
That makes sense.
What limits you from spending on that card is not the credit limit, it's your budget. How much money you have that you're borrowing from your future self that you're going to pay this credit card off in the next 8 months, because you have 6 have already gone by and you have 8 months remaining on that 14-month period.
Fascinating.
Now, there's other deals. They have credit card miles. They have, hotel rooms. If you're into, the hotels, you got to pick and choose what you think is the best. Another thing to think about is there are certain businesses, certain industries, and I was a consultant for 4 years. As a consultant, you get to spend a lot of your company's money on business expenses. And that's where everybody starts figuring out how to optimize is put all the money on your card. Like back when I was a consultant, me and my peers would fight over like dinners and fight over big events. We'd all be fighting for, hey, I organized this, I want to pay on it.
Yep.
Because we'd all get the points. And again, it's not my money. It's somebody else's money. The company pays me, reimburses me, and gives it back.
Just through your personal credit
But
card.
it's through my personal credit card, and I get to reap the benefits of that. I get the points. I get the whatever the deal is for that card.
Totally.
And that's in the essence what credit card hacking is trying to take advantage of those deals and stuff that's out there for your own benefit and bank those things.
So
it's just through 4 years of being a consultant. I did travel. I traveled 2 years of those 4, like nonstop, pretty much, all year.
True. That's so true.
But I, because of that, have lifetime platinum status with Marriott. Hey, I'll take it. Now, when I travel for vacations, I get upgraded, I get bonuses, we get accesses to the lounge, and I get to keep that for my life perk. And it's all because of the credit card hacking I was doing.
That's incredible. When you're taking these credit cards out, how has that affected your credit score? Was that ever an issue for you?
So people that treat their credit score like it's some, shine of how virtuous they are, that's silly. My credit score has been around a 700, 720, 680, because you are constantly opening and closing cards. It's important that you manage. It's good to leave those credit limits open because they do benefit you.
I was going to ask you, do you close them when you're done with them?
Well, some do, but honestly, I try and wait for the institution to close them on me. After 2-3 years of non-use, they'll just close it on you. Now, that does affect your credit score, but you know what? Your credit score is there. Your credit's there to be used. It's a tool. It's something you need to be using. And as long as you keep, doing it, like it's you'll have an 800, you'll have a 600. It's no big deal. Like it's just a measure of where you are today of how likely someone are to buy for you.
Does it only matter when you need the credit?
Yes, that's a very good point. When you're going to open the card is the day that the credit score matters. And again, you manage your credit score by keeping your balances low and keeping your accounts high. So opening an interest-free card, going through the whole cycle, paying it off after 14 months, and leaving it open for 3 years, that balance amount stays as a benefit on you because you have all this extra credit. And as long as you don't touch it, don't use it, it's beneficial for you. It's beneficial for your credit score. It allows you to open the next one. And it's worst case, it is a really bad emergency fund that you do have access to. Don't recommend it. Don't try and use it, but it's there.
Now, I don't know if this is possible when you're doing all this credit card, sort of like juggling between this one, that one, that one. It's helped you. Can you ever pull cash out of there? So if you opened up a $10,000 credit card limit, there's a 0% for, let's say, 14 months. Have you ever been able to pull cash out? Is that an option?
Usually, no. It is really tough to get cash out of a credit card. I was able to do it once, and I had to use a home equity line of credit.
Oh, wow.
And it was, it was a very complex deal, and I did it once, and I said, I'm never doing this again because it was just not worth it. That does limit you on what you can spend the things on and what you can, spend this cash on, or, travel, vacations, things that you can swipe a credit card for. That's how you use it. But again, discipline. Like you have to know what your money is. You have to spend less than you earn. And as long as you do that, you can use these things to just bring forward. I like to say you're borrowing from your future self.
Which is true.
Yeah. So, and you're not borrowing from the company, you're borrowing from your future self because you have to pay it back.
Yeah, because if you're going to spend the 5 grand versus investing the 5 grand, there's a big opportunity cost there. So if a millennial's watching this show right now and they want to get ahead, they want to actually become a millionaire, what's one thing that they could do to stop overspending? Like take them through how you figured this out at such an early age.
Well, I'm going to sound like a broken record. Measurement.
But what do you measure? Do you write it down every month?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Or do you track it?
Yeah.
Like, what are the details?
I have a spreadsheet that I have my full budget in. I have, I have two. So I have one that is my spending. That is all of my stuff that I spend on a monthly basis. And then buckets for, certain activities. So like I now have 2 kids. Kids activities are relatively expensive, so I have a nice big bucket for kids activities. I also pay myself first. And what I mean by that is when you get paid, you need to say, all right, I'm taking my 10% or more, hopefully a lot more, but I'm going to take that money and I'm going to put that aside in my savings, in my, my stock account. I'm going to take that first and put that aside and not touch it. Then you cover your living expenses, you cover your utilities, you cover other things in your life that you have to spend money on. And then what you're left is your, like, what you can play with, what you can buy. So, new items, travel, all of the things that, you want to do in life. And that's how I think about building a budget. And that's how my budget works. I then also, on the flip side, have an income budget. So I take a look at my paycheck, and just like how your paycheck will break things out, I do the same thing. And I do that for a big reason, is there's a lot of things you need to be taking advantage of if you're a corporate employee like I am, like 401k. You need to make sure you are contributing to your 401k. At a minimum, you need to be making whatever your match is for your company, at a minimum. And ideally, you're doing more. So you want to do that. So I like calculating a savings rate, basically. And so I like to know what my actual savings rate is.
That's a good idea.
I probably do some things that most people don't do. In fact, Dave Ramsey would probably flip his lid if he tried to put this in one of his budgets. But I actually look at my mortgage payment, and any of my principal that goes to my mortgage payment, I consider part of my savings rate.
Hey.
Right? You're paying yourself. I'm putting equity into my home. I am actually growing equity in my home. That equity has value. I have the ability to go take a second loan out on it and borrow against it if I want to. I want to measure that. I want to know what that kind of is. Again, that's all based on factors like, credit score and where the world is at the moment, where interest rates are at the moment. But that's another thing that I like to monitor and keep a track of. Then if you have IRAs, if you're maxing out your 401k at work, think of your IRA. Also, I'm a big believer in the HSA, like always going with a plan that allows me to have an HSA. So, that high deductible plan. I'm very lucky that my family is all in great health. I know that's not an option for everybody, but if you really aren't needing to be locked into an HMO, think about, hold on, I should do the high deductible plan. This high deductible plan usually has a cash contribution from your employer.
True.
If you're maxing out all your other saving stuff, that becomes your third retirement account.
And hold that thought right there. We need to go deeper into this in the next segment. Stay tuned to the Retire As You Desire show. Welcome back to the Retire As You Desire show. We have Mr. Kent Webster here today. We're talking all about becoming a millionaire as a millennial. We're all working on this, and we're laughing about this. I mean, we go way back. We've been friends a long time now, and you and I have had some awesome conversations over the years about money. What do we do here? What do we not do here? What's a great opportunity? And I want to pick your brain a little bit because you're really great from the detail standpoint. You're one of the people who I call a do-it-yourselfer investor because you love doing that. Not everybody does, right? But when you're doing your 401k and your HSA and your stocks, things like that, how much does tax planning go into what you do with your money? Are you thinking into the future? Do you think taxes will go up in the future? Because this is the conversation that I'm having with my retiree clients and people who are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. And what do we do for planning? So I'm going to put the spotlight on you here, Mr. Webster. What do you do from a tax perspective?
I do not know. I mean, do you have a coin? Do you have a dartboard? Like, we might as well just kind of guess. And to be honest, I don't have a good answer. I don't really know. I'm doing kind of, whatever at the moment. So because my company allows a 401k Roth, I'm able to contribute to that.
Nice.
And I know, there's limits, and I know that I'm above the limit. So I want to make sure for IRA Roth. So that's my only option now to contribute money as a Roth. So
True.
I'm taking full advantage of that. And so 100% of my retirement right now is going into that. However, if I look at my retirement portfolio, I'm actually split half and half.
Okay.
Now, again, that Roth is catching up, but I've done a lot in the past to try and do pre-tax, to minimize my existing tax expense. And so I've done a balance. And I guess I don't know, to be honest. I'm kind of stumbling through it. I'm looking more at tactically what the advantages I have today.
Yeah.
But and I think I can disclose this, right? I am a customer of yours.
Right.
So tell me, what should I be doing with my retirement? What's the best place to put it between those two choices?
Well, here's how I look at this. When you're young, I love doing the Roth as much as possible. That's what I do for our household. That's how my wife's accounts are set up. When you think about where our government is right now, it is kind of like tossing a coin up. Will taxes go up? Will they go down? I look at things from a historical standpoint because in the 1940s, the highest tax brackets were in the middle 90%.
Yeah.
So if you made $200,000, like Ronald Reagan only did 2 movies a year, got paid $100,000 each. Anything over that, he was taxed at 90+%. So why would you do that? Historically, tax rates could go up. Medicare is underfunded. Medicaid is underfunded. Social Security is underfunded. I just did an episode on the Social Security, something you definitely want to watch because I kind of debunk some of the mysteries about that. But I will say this, you have to take a stance. You have to take a stance, especially as a millennial. If you want to become a millionaire, in theory, if you save, let's say, $1 million in a pre-tax 401k, you do not have $1 million because the government has basically a lien on your money. But if you do things in the other way, if you have a Roth 401k and you put $1 million in there, if you wanted to withdraw all $1 million, you keep it. Yep, you keep the money. So in my opinion, I like using tax-free ways to plan for your future. And I even talk about this with our retiree clients. Can we do a Roth conversion? Where's your next tax bracket? Does this make sense? Do you want to leave tax-free money to your kids or grandkids? And that's an estate builder. When you could pass down tax-free assets, sort of like life insurance, that could have a huge benefit for your family. So I really love the Roth idea because I just think taxes are going to be going up eventually.
I can see where you're coming from. My concern about what you've said, though, is I feel like I'm spending a lot of money now and I want to have the tax break now versus when I'm older, my kids are out of the house. I'll control what I want to spend my money on. I'll have much more say, much more, ability. Hopefully my house is paid for, so I don't need to be taking income to cover my house. I don't know. I look at, certain people that are out there, Mr. Money Mustache and other ones being like, hey, I can probably live in retirement and be in that bottom tax bracket and pay, 12% now or
it's
something?
10 right
10?
now. But
10%?
their income is like $12,000 approximately. Definitely look that up. But why would you want to live in a low tax bracket? You could live in a low tax bracket if you have tax-free money. The problem is, in my mind, and what I've seen with my clients, is that when you do take money out, Social Security becomes taxed from a pre-tax standpoint. So now your Social Security that you've paid into is taxable.
See,
that's a problem.
I'm glad you're optimistic that you think I'm going to get Social Security because
watch the Social Security episode.
I haven't seen it yet, but I do my planning assuming I'm not getting Social Security.
So what do you do to supplement that?
What do you mean to supplement it? It's on me.
Yeah.
It's on me to like make sure my retirement is set up for my wife and I, and that we're prepared for our end of life when we don't work anymore, because we do both work.
Well, speaking of your wife, I want to segment into this, but again, you have to draw a line in the sand. If you think taxes are going to go up, you may want to consider the Roth. But if you think taxes are going to remain low, or like Mr. Money Mustache, I want to stay in the lowest tax bracket. If you do everything pre-tax, you're potentially always going to be taxed. And that's part of the offset there. But you and your wife, you got married very young. I mean, before I knew you, essentially, which is a long time ago now. How in the world have you guys been able to finagle kids, money? I mean, since I've known you, you've had 3 houses, you've moved. I mean, you've had a lot of moving parts. How have you guys done this?
Never had 3 houses at the same time.
Correct. Not at the same time, but throughout our friendship.
Yeah. No. Well, so we met in college. We met our junior year of school. We both are in the same grade. We both went to different colleges. And so we dated long distance. And then 6 months after moving back to Chicago after college, I moved in with her. And so we've been together literally since, met as a 19-year-olds and, been living together since 21-year-olds. So we started, we both been working. We pretty early created a joint account between both of us.
A savings checking?
No, just checking account, because we were covering our living costs. We were living together. So we still had our own money. We still maintained it individually.
What my wife and I do.
Yeah, but we communicated. We set expectations. Like the expectation is like you're covering half, I'm covering half. Now, we didn't always do that as we progressed in our careers. We like to say we played this game of who's making more money, and we constantly trade the leadership tag between the two of us.
How hard was that to figure out at first? Like, I'm covering this, I'm covering that. What was that like?
Well, so she did not come to our relationship with any debt. And as we've covered, I came to our relationship with a lot of debt. So there was extra onus on me to set expectations, to say, here's what we need to do, and have it well organized and have it measured, and showing that I can contribute and meet my expectations of her that we're setting together. And so, she had a lot more ability to go spend and play money and do what she wanted to do. Whereas a lot of time I'm the one that's cutting myself and making my sacrifices on my side. But like that all sort of changed once we started getting closer, and we moved in together at 21.
Which is super young. Yeah.
We got married at 24. So once we got married, suddenly now we're one entity.
True.
And that's where we combined everything together. So even though I was carrying some debt into our marriage, we looked at how things were going and how things were managed it. And she looked at the skills that I'd start building. Wasn't exactly in her forte to manage all that. And so we started agreeing to specialize. And so she started taking other responsibilities in our relationship. And I took full ownership over our finances and like how we decided and how we did things, and continued that budget that we had kind of started. And it's funny, still to this day, we still have those 3 accounts, even though we don't really use, I should just close them and bring them all into one. It's on my to-do list, and it's probably been on my to-do list for
years now,
for 7 or 10 years.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's huge. I've never seen a couple in the decade and a half of me helping people with their money ever be ingrained in the finances together. I've never seen it. I've never ever met a couple who do everything together.
Well, because it's somebody always has to specialize,
right?
And I think it's important, if you're the person that specializes, communication is so important with your significant other. So I looked at it as I took on the job, and she's the board of directors, and so I need to make sure I'm making regular reports to her about how we're doing, what's happening to the debt, what's happening to our wealth, what's happening to our income. And I scheduled where it was once a month with her. Okay. And we did that because you don't want to only talk about it when there's some decision to be made. That's not when you want to be having those conversations.
No, that's the worst time.
Well, and 2, it also makes you as the responsible party to be the one that always has to say no. Mm-hmm. You're always on the spot of, honey, can I do this? Well, yeah, maybe, but that means we have to stop doing this. We have to give that up. We need to cut costs here. You're saying no, which stinks. You don't want to do that. So it's better to sit down, talk with your spouse, regularly communicate with them about where you guys are at, do these checkups. And there's so many great tools out there too.
True.
I will plug your app again because again, I set up Mint. So your app did not exist back in 2010.
Very true.
But, I set up Mint for my wife and I. I made sure she had, the same user ID and login so she could go see it. I didn't go to her saying, honey, you need to spend less. I said, hey, honey, guess what? You spent, $500 this year at your stylist. Are you good with that?
Is that okay? Right.
Is that
and
okay?
Then you make decisions.
Yeah. And because that's all you're doing. That's the kind of budgeting that, measurement you're trying to do is you're trying to say, am I okay spending that amount of money on that thing?
Well,
and if you're not, you bring it back.
And talking about bringing it back, stay with us for the next break. I think this last segment is going to be the most important one on how to really focus and plan on becoming a millionaire as a millennial. Stay tuned to the Retire As You Desire show. Welcome back to the Retire As You Desire show. Millennial, millionaires, pay attention. If you want to become a millionaire, we've had some great discussions as to what to do, what not to do during the show today. And we have Kent Webster joining us, and he's really helped us learn on what to do and what not to do, and what's helped him and his family try and really get ahead throughout his mid-30s. So we were talking about debt. We're talking about balance coming up. What does balance look like for you? How are you able to still have fun, go on vacations? You have 2 kids. Kids are really expensive, as you and I both know. But where do you and your wife find a balance to actually enjoy your life when we have bills and debt to pay?
Well, we were lucky enough to plan and decide to have kids. And so as I talk about measurement and planning, of course we measured and planned and decided when was the time, right. And was it perfect? No, we were not ready financially. Oh my gosh, I would have, it would have been great to have 3 or 4 more years to pay everything off and be debt free and enter into having kids debt free. But no, it didn't happen. And when you have kids, it gets harder to cut back on things. And it gets harder to, put your future self first, harder to put money away because you want to enjoy the time you have with them. And so, yes, I transitioned from working really hard on our debt, grinding it down, maybe taking out, loans to buy real estate that we ended up living in, or, taking advantage of interest rates to, we bought a place that needed a lot of work. We went through a massive renovation.
Oh, yeah.
I did not have the money. I had a little bit of the cash on hand when we bought the place. I had to borrow a significant amount of it, and I'm down. Well, I have paid most of it off. I have one left to go. I will have that segment of debt paid off and that card gone, by the end of this year. So I'm getting really close. But yeah, the balance is, there's a point in time where you have to stop those habits you've built. Stop that anxiety that you have around spending an extra dollar or something that you don't have in your plan and you're not prepared for to spend. You have to stop feeling anxious about that and come back and realize that money is a tool. And there's times when it is worth it to spend your time and energy to figure out, how do I optimize and how do I spend the least amount of money in this situation? And there's times too where this problem, I can make it go away in 5 minutes by pulling out the card or writing a check.
Yep.
And you do it and you forgive yourself. You have to let go of that anxiety and just be like, I am okay solving this problem with money. And it's funny, I had a specific circumstance that happened to me where I learned that skill from somebody.
What happened? Tell us, please.
Sure.
I want to hear about this.
Sure. So I was traveling with a friend. We were traveling just guys kind of out, and we got stuck in a location. And it was one of those where I'm already anxious about we were doing a multi-leg trip. I just lost the money of the hotel room that I bought in this other city that we're trying to get to. We're now stuck in the previous city. We can't continue forward. And, and then my nights there are going to be ruined. And should we go hang out in the airport and should we just sleep on the floor of the airport? And my friend looks at me and goes, no, we're all good. Pulls out his credit card. We go to the little, Motel 8, gets us a room. All right, cool. Let's go enjoy the night. And it just clicked. It just clicked for me right there because it was not a huge spend. It was, $150. It was $200. That can be a lot for some people, but where I was in my situation in my life, no, that really wasn't. That's something that I could easily handle. I was in a, in a spot where that isn't a big deal anymore.
Right.
And to suddenly be like, oh, yeah, I just solved this whole problem. I thought I was going to be anxious for the next 12 hours until our new flight, arrangement happened and we were able to leave the next morning. And it's just like, no, we just solved this problem. Yeah, let's go have some fun. Let's go find a bar to go hang out at. Let's go find an activity to do tonight. It's 5:00. Like, we got time. Let's go do something fun. And I was able to enjoy that day, that evening so much more, just because it was like, I have a problem. This is a problem I can solve with money. I'm going to guilt-free solve this problem and move on.
Is that the whole point of money?
I mean, right? It could be. I mean, we live in this amazing economy. And yes, we've decided a long time ago that we're going to trade these little trinkets back and forth with each other of how we establish worth and between various things. Yeah, I guess you have to remember money's a tool.
It is.
It's something that we have a ton of anxiety about. It's stuff that we have a lot of emotions and stuff tied up for. You're always trying to build your pile. You're always trying to scrape together every dime you can and add it to that like savings and have that there. But you also need to realize it's a tool and that you need to spend it and you can't take it with you. So you might as well spend it while you're here or find people that you can benefit with it. I know we've been giving Dave Ramsey a lot of hard pokes during this conversation, but I will say his approach to philanthropy, his approach to taking care of your community, that resonates with me, and that's something that I'm trying now to work more into my life as I get out of debt.
That's huge.
So, and that's that's a big thing that you can do, and that I mean, you build this wealth, you can do those things. You can be that person that when there's a community or a organization that's in need, you can show up and write a check, and it's almost doesn't mean much to you, but it means a lot to that organization. It means that community. It makes it's how we build a better world, right?
Amen. And that's the best feeling in the world. You could buy stuff. I've done it, been there, done that. It's great to get things or work towards things, but when you give, it's magical. Magical. Now, I want to ask you something, because you were saying something and it kind of resonated with me, because I struggle with this. I thought, how come I don't have this and this person has that? How come this person's done this? I haven't done this yet. It's because I didn't put in the work at that time. But this was really like an imposter syndrome for me in my 20s. Do you ever compare yourself to other people, what they have and what other people don't have? And does that ever mess with your psyche? Because it definitely did with mine in my 20s. I was so off base with this.
I used to. But there's so many variables that go into who we are and our background and opportunities and luck that when you actually try and think of it that way, it's like, how can you compare two different people?
It's impossible.
It's absolutely impossible.
Yeah.
And, personally, I stay off social media. I don't most people on social media are just trying to flex whatever like muscles or whatever profit or things they have, whether they've actually got the money behind it and the wealth behind it or not.
True.
And let's be honest, it's mostly for show. It's mostly, so I stay off social media. I try and avoid things that want to lead me towards comparison to others.
Brilliant. That's a big tip for all millennials watching this show. I mean, stay away from that stuff. It's a trap. It's like a mask almost.
If you have the tools, if you're aware of where you're spending your money, you can spend it smarter. You can just choose to build wealth, or you can choose to enjoy the moment, or you can find ways to accomplish what you want, take care of your kids, have a great experience, but at the same time, not borrow from your future self and hurt your future self and set your future self up for failure.
So where are you at now? Where's your balance at now?
Where am I at now?
We're going to wrap up the episode with
Sure.
this. Where are we at now?
I'm still chipping away at debt. I've never been fully debt free, but right now, because of the economic situation, to borrow is really expensive. I've been talking about some of the credit card hacking in earlier segments. Like, there's not a lot of those opportunities anymore, or if there are, you have to have really good credit. So you need to change your behavior. You need to change your habits. And so right now, my goal in the next year is to get rid of all of my unsecured debt off of my account. And I'm well on track to do that. I've already paid off a car. I got one more to pay off. Like I said, I'm down to one one interest-free credit card purchase one that I have until the end of this year. And then once that paid off, I get to say my home improvement project is fully paid.
That's huge. That's equity in your home.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
That's
it's all equity in my home. I mean, yes, you're right. And that's part of why there's power in borrowing too, right? It's because I borrowed this money. I didn't have it. I didn't wait to save it up. I borrowed it. I spent it in a way that added value to my home. And if I wanted to sell my home, I could have paid off that debt and gotten some, proceeds, some equity out of that because I've increased the value of the home.
You're playing the game better than others.
That's a tool.
Yeah.
It's something that as long as you are disciplined and you understand it's a tool and understand its traps and understand how to not fall into those traps, it's a tool that you can use. And I think that's not said a lot in like the financial stuff you see out there on YouTube and other places. And I'm pointing my finger at David Ramsey. That's like, it's not an evil that you try and avoid. It's a tool that you can use, but be disciplined. And if you're not disciplined, then know that. And guess what? It's off the table. You can go follow David Ramsey's rules.
Exactly. And have your own plan because your risk tolerance and your level of being comfortable with things is going to be so different for everyone. So knowing yourself in and of itself is going to be a huge benefit going into your financial planning stages.
Absolutely. I'll add one more thing. Right now, I am doing stuff that it goes against everything that I was doing in my 20s, which is I am enjoying spending money on my kids.
Hey.
The activities that I have them in, the fact that I might be overpaying for some of them and I can find a cheaper option. Yeah, I could, but you know what? They're loving it. They're getting this awesome experience. They are growing. It is so rewarding to see.
Is that the best investment you're doing with your life right now?
I don't know if it's the best investment. I mean, the stock market's on a run, but like, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, absolutely. It is so rewarding. It feels so good. That and, giving back to my community by making, donations where I can. Those are the best things I am doing right now with the little bit of wealth I've been able to create.
Well, you're going to continue to build wealth because you have your own plan. And as you started the show off, slow and steady is really, in my opinion, one of the best ways to go because it's all about being consistent. When you're consistent, that's when you see results and they show over time, and time is your friend, especially if you're a millennial. So thank you for watching the Retire As You Desire show. Mr. Webster, thank you for being an incredible guest today.
You're welcome, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Happy to. Please tune in every Friday night, 6 p.m. Central Time. We have new episodes of the Retire As You Desire show. Thank you for being with us today.